Welcome to Mindset Talk No Jutsu, where anime meets discipline, where pressure becomes power, and where we sharpen the mind like a blade. I'm your host, Keetrick, and if you're here, not just listening, you're training. Every episode, we break down characters, moments, and philosophies, not just to watch them grow, but to force ourselves to grow. So if you're building something, if you're rebuilding yourself, if life just applied pressure and you refuse to fold, you're in the right place. All right, let's enter the training ground. The opening strike. Most people say they want greatness, but very few are willing to bleed quietly for it. Let that sentence land, because that line alone divides the room. Everybody wants the aura, few want the repetition. Everybody wants the respect, but very few want the responsibility. Everybody wants to be seen as strong, but very few are willing to build strength when nobody is looking. Welcome to Mindset Talk No Jutsu. Today, we're breaking down one of the coldest moments in anime history, Zoro, the man who took pain that wasn't his and said, nothing happened. No speech, no victory pose, no explanation. Just blood on the ground and silence in the air. And that silence was louder than any monologue. If you know the scene, you didn't just watch it, you felt it. Because it wasn't dramatic strength, it was disciplined strength. Today, we're not talking about swords. We're talking about quiet loyalty. We're talking about internal standards. We're talking about whether your strength is performative or structural. Because here's something most people don't admit. A lot of people don't quit because it's hard. They quit because it's unnoticed. Endurance is quiet, and quiet exposes character. Greatness isn't explosive, it's accumulated. It's repetition when nobody is watching. It's posture when you're under pressure. It's discipline when you're emotionally tired. It's keeping your word when your feelings want to argue back. A lot of people don't want greatness, they want applause. Recognition is external, greatness is internal. Zoro didn't absorb that pain to be remembered. He absorbed it because that's who he decided to be. And that's the pressure point of this episode. Are you building strength or are you building an image? Because only one survives pressure. Let's step into it. Training alone. There was a time in my life where nobody clapped. No recognition, no applause, no reassurance I was on the right path. Just work, effort, repetition, and silence. See, silence is heavy when you're building something because when nobody sees you, your mind starts filling the gap. Doubt gets louder, comparison creeps in. You start measuring your pace against someone else's highlight reel. I remember pushing myself in seasons where internally I was tired, mentally stretched, doubting. Not doubting myself, not doubting my ability, just doubting whether it mattered. And that's a different kind of fatigue. It's one thing to be physically tired, and it's another to question your direction. When progress is invisible, belief gets tested. It's one thing to grind when people are watching. It's another to grind when the only witness is your own integrity. Integrity doesn't clap. Integrity observes. Integrity records. And it remembers whether you showed up or you negotiated. The real test of discipline isn't intensity, it's consistency when nobody sees you. Intensity is emotional, consistency, structural. Anybody can go hard for a week, but very few will go steady for a year. That's where most people fold, not because they're weak, but because they're addicted to feedback. Silence, it exposes insecurity. When nobody validates your progress, your mind starts negotiating. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe I should pivot. Maybe I'm behind. Maybe I miscalculated. That voice isn't weakness, it's identity instability. And when identity isn't stable, effort, it fluctuates. See, Zoro trains without applause because he doesn't need permission to sharpen. He doesn't need the world to confirm his direction. His vow confirms it. That's internal authority. And internal authority changes everything. Zoro standard. Roronoa Zoro doesn't train for validation. He trains because he promised himself he would become the greatest swordsman of the world. Not try, become. See, language matters. Try leaves room for exit. Become removes it. When he loses to Mihawk, that moment could have broken him. Humiliation has broken stronger men. But watch what he does. He doesn't downgrade the dream. He doesn't rebrand the goal. He doesn't protect his pride. He bows and asks to be trained by the man who defeated him. That's humility under fire. See, most people avoid what's exposed them. Zoro, he moved toward it. That's ego under discipline. Mission-centered people are dangerous because setbacks, they don't crush them, they clarify them. Zoro wasn't defeated, he was refined. See, there's a difference between being embarrassed and being sharpened. Embarrassment attacks the ego. Sharpening strengthens identity. If embarrassment makes you retreat, ego is leading. If embarrassment makes you train harder, mission is leading. That's forged confidence, not hype confidence. Forged confidence is quiet. It doesn't shout. It doesn't announce. It builds and it waits. The lie. When Kuma offered Zoro the deal, take all of Luffy's pain, all of it, and I'll let him live. That wasn't symbolic. That was accumulated damage, fatigue layered on trauma, every wound transferred. And Zoro didn't hesitate. He didn't negotiate terms, he didn't request acknowledgement, he didn't even ask for credit later. He stepped forward. That's loyalty without audience, because Kuma didn't promise recognition. In fact, he offered suffering, and Zoro accepted it quietly. That's where strength becomes structural, and this is where it lands for me. I coach reps for a living. They don't show up as blank slates. They show up after arguments, after sleepless nights, financial stress, family tension, after life has already taken a swing at them. And I could say what we're all used to, leave it at the door. That would be easier, but that's not leadership. So instead, I step into it with them. I listen, I help them unpack it, I help them regulate, help them find themselves again so they can show up fully, not just for metrics, but for their own lives. And here's the part that mirrors Zoro's. That burden, it isn't technically mine, but I carry pieces of it anyway. Not for recognition, not for someone to write a report about it, but because I understand something most people overlook. One distracted decision at work can ripple into someone's confidence. One unresolved emotion can bleed into performance. One moment of not being fully present can compound both personally and professionally. So I absorb what I can, not dramatically, not loudly, just steadily. And I don't need the room to know I did it, because leadership isn't about being seen carrying weight. It's about making sure the mission continues intact. When Sanji asked Zoro what happened, he said, nothing happened. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the crew didn't need the story. They needed stability. That's loyalty to something bigger than ego. And the truth is, the strongest people in the room are often the quietest ones. Not because nothing happened, but because they chose to hold it. Three sword style. On the Mary, they laugh at him. Chopper calls him a savage, Nami calls him a blockhead, Sanji calls him an idiot. Luffy says, three sword style. Usopp says, that's not even an insult. So Luffy says, four sword style. It's playful, but it's revealing. They don't fully understand him yet. And Zoro, he doesn't rush to make them. He doesn't defend the style. He doesn't break down the mechanics. He doesn't try to intellectualize it. He just walks away and keeps sharpening. That's security, because insecurity explains itself to be accepted. Security refines itself to be effective. There was a time I hesitated to tell people how I pivot mentally, how I use characters as frameworks, how I studied Naruto when I needed to access more presence, more warmth, more outward energy, how I think about Hinata from Haikyuu when I needed to practice harder, stay disciplined, outwork my limitations. Hinata Shoyo from the concrete. That's a bar in its own, deserving of its own show. But from the outside, that can sound childish or unserious or strange. And there's always a split second thought. Maybe just keep that part quiet. Because not everyone understands how strategy can look unconventional. But here's the truth. I don't study characters solely for entertainment. I study them for pattern recognition, for emotional calibration, for behavioral modeling. It's no different than someone studying a biography of a CEO. It just happens to be animated. And I had to decide something internally. Am I building something authentic or something palatable? Because if I reshape how I think just so it sounds more acceptable, then I dilute the edge that makes it effective. Three sword style looks ridiculous until it wins. Innovation often looks immature before it looks masterful. Zoro never needed them to understand his method. He needed it to be sharpened. And that's the shift. Wisdom isn't about being understood immediately. It's about knowing why you're doing what you're doing. There's a difference between feedback and projection. Feedback improves you, projection tries to make you familiar. If I abandon what genuinely works for me just to avoid someone raising an eyebrow, that's not growth, that's conformity. Zoro stayed consistent long enough for the laughter to become respect. And that's the quiet lesson. Don't rush to explain your path. Refine it. Let it work. Then let it speak. Lost, but not directionless. Zoro gets lost constantly. He'll run confidently in the wrong direction, ignore instructions, take a turn that nobody else would take. It's almost comedic, but look closer. When the fight starts, he's there. Wrong turn, right arrival. He may not follow the map, but he always shows up at the moment that matters. And that's the key. Because being off route is not the same as being off purpose. When it comes to building this podcast, I used to frame it like I was just figuring everything out: how to position the camera, how to edit cleanly, how to layer music without overpowering my message. Those were skills I had to develop, and I'm still refining them. But here's the shift: I'm not sitting back waiting until it's perfect. I'm posting, I'm creating, I'm building the platform while I learn the technical side. That means I'm arriving, not waiting. There will always be gaps between the vision and execution, between how something looks in your head and how it looks on first upload. But progress, it isn't perfection. It's repetition with adjustment. Zoro doesn't stop moving just because he took a wrong turn. He recalibrates while still advancing. That's what I'm doing. Each episode improves. Each edit sharpens. Each post builds visibility. And even if I feel like I'm still mastering the technical side, I'm not frozen. I'm in motion. And motion creates competence. The key realization for me was this: I'm not directionless. I know the destination. I'm just refining how I get there. Wrong angles at first, better angles over time. Posting anyway, learning while building. That's alignment with action. Lost is temporary. Momentum is intentional. And right now, I'm arriving. Imperfectly, but consistently. Cut it. Picture this. The train is coming, fast, massive, blocking the path to their destination. There's no time to hesitate. Luffy looks at Zoro and says, "Cut it." Not as a suggestion, not as hope, but as confidence. He said it like he already knew the outcome. And that matters. Because in that moment, Luffy wasn't guessing about Zoro's ability. He had seen the reps, he had seen the training, he had seen the discipline. So when pressure showed up in physical form, he trusted in the execution. Zoro doesn't overthink it, not in the least. He draws his sword, he cuts. Obstacle removed, path cleared. That moment, it isn't just about power, it's about belief. Belief that was earned through, you guessed it, consistency. And here's where this hits me personally. Ever since I said I wanted to build this podcast, my wife has been behind me saying, "Cut it." Before the first episode was recorded, before I fully committed to it, before I even knew how it would look, she listened to the idea, she listened to the vision. She saw something in me that wasn't fully visible yet, and she pushed me toward it. She was my Zorro. Cut it. When doubt showed up, when hesitation crept in, when I questioned timing or readiness, she spoke with certainty. Cut it. And that kind of support changes everything, because confidence from the outside, especially from someone who knows you deeply, reinforces confidence on the inside. Zoro cutting the train works because someone believed he could. My move to create this platform happened faster because someone believed I could. That belief removes hesitation. It turns potential into action. And here's the lesson: sometimes your greatest obstacle isn't external, it's your own doubt. And sometimes the person closest to you sees your capacity before you do. If you have someone in your corner who says, "Cut it," before the world validates you, protect that. Appreciate that. It's rare. Confidence under pressure is powerful. Confidence with support, unstoppable. And I'm grateful that my wife has been the voice of belief for me since the beginning. The moment before transformation. There's a moment in Zoro's fight before Ashura activates where everything feels heavier. He's pushed, he's wounded, his breathing is uneven. His opponent is fast, calculated, and relentless. And at that point, normal effort isn't enough anymore. He realizes something critical. If he keeps fighting the same way, he loses. Pressure exposes limits, but pressure can also reveal potential. That moment, the moment where you understand that you can no longer operate the way that you used to, is uncomfortable. It forces awareness and humility and adaptation. For me, that moment happened when I was released from my job. At first, it hit like shock, then uncertainty, and then reflection. It wasn't failure, it wasn't rejection. It was pressure exposing something in my life that needed to shift. Comfort had been disrupted, security had been removed, and suddenly I was standing at a crossroads asking, do I go back to the same structure and chase stability? Or do I use this disruption as a pivot into purpose? That decision point was my version of standing in the middle of battle, realizing I couldn't fight the same way anymore. Sometimes life removes what feels safe to force you into growth. That moment before transformation isn't flashy, it's uncomfortable, it's quiet, but it's powerful. That tension became my catalyst. Budokai. There's a Japanese concept called Budokai. It represents mastery through disciplined confrontation. It's what happens when resistance forces expansion and you choose control over collapse. Budokai isn't about aggression. It's about awareness under pressure. It's about expanding capacity when limits are tested. Zoro's Budokai moment shows up when he activates Ashura. He doesn't panic. He doesn't swing randomly. He centers himself inside the chaos. His form expands, his presence intensifies, his perception sharpens. Three swords, three manifestations, one controlled will. That transformation didn't happen because he got lucky. It happened because pressure demanded evolution, and he was ready to answer it. My Budokai moment mirrored that shift. Instead of letting my job loss define my identity, I decided it would redefine my direction. I committed to building this podcast, not someday, not when everything felt stable. Now, I committed to learning the skills required: camera confidence, editing, storytelling, consistency. I accepted that I would start imperfect, but I refused to stay inactive. Every Sunday becomes my discipline checkpoint. Every upload becomes proof that I chose growth over stagnation. That's my activation. Budokai for me is the decision to build publicly while I improve privately. It's pressure turned into purpose. The result of Budokai. After Zoro activates Ashura against Kaku, the battle shifts. His power isn't reckless anymore. It's focused. His awareness is expanded. His presence feels heavier. And Kaku realizes he's no longer fighting the same swordsman. Zoro isn't swinging blindly. He's controlling the battlefield. Then comes the decisive moment. Zoro releases his finishing move, nine sword style, Ashura, Ichibungen. That strike ends the fight, not through chaos, not through desperation, but through mastered intensity. That attack is proof that his transformation wasn't temporary, it was emotional. It was a state he entered because pressure forced evolution and he was ready to sustain it long enough to win. For me, the result of Budokai isn't measured by instant success. It's measured by execution, posting every Sunday, improving the craft, refining delivery, building momentum. Each upload is my version of that finishing strike. Not flashy, not deliberate. The victory after Budokai isn't about hype, it's about proof. Pressure created awareness. Commitment created action. Action created growth, and growth created results. And results create belief in myself and in the process. Budokai isn't a one time activation, it's the ability to enter pressure and exit stronger. Talk No Jutsu Challenge, Budokai Edition. All right, this is where we train. You heard me say it. Budokai. It represents mastery through disciplined confrontation. It's what happens when pressure shows up, and instead of avoiding it, you engage it. Not because it's comfortable, not because you feel ready, Not because the fear disappeared, but because the mission matters more than the mood. Because growth demands friction. Because warriors don't negotiate with discomfort. You cut it. Your mission. Identify one area in your life where pressure already exists. Not imaginary pressure, not future pressure, the pressure that's already knocking. Then ask yourself, what is the pressure revealing about me? What skill is this season demanding I build? What action can I take this week to expand instead of escape? No overthinking, no 10-step plan, one move, one confrontation, one step into the arena. Then commit. Drop it in the comments like this: Budokai. My pressure is, and my action is. Make it public. Make it real. Because pressure refines you, but accountability accelerates you. That's your mission. Let's enter the battlefield. All right. And that's the work. That's the standard. And that's what we're building here every single week. If this episode challenged you, if it exposed something, if it made you uncomfortable in the right way, good. That means you're growing. Don't just consume it, apply it. Like the video, share it with someone who needs this push. Drop a comment and tell me what you're working on. I read them, I see the effort, and I respect the discipline. Thank you for tuning in to Mindset Talk No Jutsu. Next episode, we level up again. Until then, stay sharp, stay intentional, and I'll see you in the training ground.